Another live edition of the Patriots Beat Podcast right here on the CLNS Media Network. It is Brian Hines from Pat's Pulpit, back with Alex Barth from 98.5, the Sports Hub. We got a lot to discuss today because the Patriots are back in the win column with a 21-18 victory over the Pittsburgh Steelers from Thursday night, which seems like, ages ago at this point. But we have that game to break down, and we have a few roster moves as well to start. And we can go right to that with Malik Cunningham, who, was under the spotlight a lot this past few weeks with the quarterback room looking like what it has been. And he's been elevated the last 2 weeks off the practice squad, but hasn't been able to play a snap. And he won't play a snap for the Patriots moving forward because the Baltimore Ravens signed Malik Cunningham off the Patriots practice squad to their active roster. So Malik Mania is now over in New England as he goes over to Baltimore, and a spot that makes sense with him, kind of that same skill set, obviously not as talented as Lamar Jackson, but kind of that same skill set for that offense as his backup there.
Yeah, and I think as we look back on the Malik era Cunningham in New England, it's not that often that a practice squad player gets covered the way Malik Cunningham does. I think a lot of people looked at his athletic ability at the quarterback position as a change, as an ability to do for the Patriots to do something different. And the potential may have been there. I don't think he was ever going to be
never the
answer at the quarterback position, right? But in a year where the quarterback position was such an issue, would it have been interesting to see what he could have brought? Yes. I think ultimately the problem for the Patriots was I don't want to say they never made up their mind. They clearly did. They never let Malik Cunningham focus on any one thing. Trying to, even coming from being a college quarterback, any college quarterback, the jump to the NFL is tough enough. Now you're also having him split time doing that and trying to learn a whole other position he's never played, a wide receiver. That was just not the development path wasn't there. It didn't make sense. So I know some people will say they should have kept him a quarterback all along. I would say, look, if they identified something in him that they thought they could turn him into a wide receiver, fine, that too. Pick one. Either develop him as a quarterback or develop him as a wide receiver. Having him do both was never going to end well. It just wasn't. And we'll see what he gets a chance to do now in Baltimore. I think it's a good spot for him. He gets reunited with Lamar Jackson, who he's obviously close with. They played together at Louisville. Their backup quarterbacks right now are Tyler Huntley and Josh Johnson. So it's probably a job that can be won. Maybe not for the duration of this season, but I would say when you get into the offseason and when the Ravens start training camp for 2024, I would say backup quarterback will probably, assuming that they don't bring in anybody else, backup quarterback will probably be a spot to watch there with Malik Cunningham in the mix. But yeah, the Patriots just, they were never able to narrow it down with him. Because of that, he never got his chances at quarterback, right? We heard a couple of weeks ago that part of the reason he wasn't getting the looks during games was because he wasn't practicing there. And so now another team's going to take a shot at developing him and hopefully has a better plan for him.
Yeah, the wide receiver stuff was kind of frustrating because, as he said, he told us he's never even ran a route before until like he got here in the spring. And I mean, this offense is complicated enough to learn for players who actually play wide receiver in college to transition from, a quarterback. That's a tough ask. And yeah, with the way this quarterback room has gone this year, you would have liked to see that skill set. And maybe if he was practicing over all of the spring and over the summer strictly at quarterback, he comes in that Raiders game and he doesn't look completely overwhelmed, right? And he looks more comfortable and he can maybe make an impact. So I'm with you that he probably wasn't gonna become Lamar Jackson for you, right? He's probably not going to develop into this MVP starting quarterback, but it would have been interesting to see how it developed if he was playing quarterback throughout the whole summer and the spring, and then maybe he could come in here and be a package player for you like he showed you in a preseason. And I know it's a fourth quarter of the preseason against backups, but like the skill set is obviously pretty dynamic, unlike the other quarterbacks on this roster.
Right, exactly. And they were never able to figure out a way to maximize that skill set because they were too focused where they didn't need to be focused, which was him practicing a wide receiver.
Yep. So Malik out. Also some shakeups on the coaching staff, kind of a rare in-season loss on the staff because Assistant wide receivers coach Ross Douglas departed over the weekend to Syracuse. Uh, he'll be the wide receivers coach there. It's not really a lateral move though, because it sounds like it's his own room, and it sounds like he'll have a little input on the coordinating of the offense there. So Douglas transitions to Syracuse, leaves the Patriots staff. Talking with some of the assistants this morning, they kind of sounded blindsided by it, but they were all, we wish him luck, happy for him to get that job, and they're all just. Troy Brown said, everyone's just got to step up a little bit more to take on some of those responsibilities that he held, but kind of a rare in-season move there for Douglas to leave.
Yeah, and I think the natural question that comes out of it, I mean, first off, obviously, congratulations to Ross Douglas. Yep. And you're right. It sounds like there's going to be some coordinator type of responsibilities that come with this job. So moving up in a sense, but does it tell us anything about the future of the Patriots coaching staff? Was Ross Douglas, because you assume Ross Douglas went to Bill and was like, hey, just, is there anything I should know before I take this job? Right. And could it signal that the wide receivers coaches are going to be changed this offseason? Could it mean something for Bill? I don't think it's that big. What it does tell me is maybe there's little certainty about what the offensive staff is going to look like beyond this season. Bill Belichick or not? Will Bill O'Brien be back? Will they shake up the positional coaches? Obviously, the wide receiver room hasn't produced as expected the last few years. That's Ross Douglas and Troy Brown. Those are guys that should be in the spotlight this offseason. Is Adrian Clem going to come back to coaching? We don't know what. You hope he's taking care of himself medically, but it does become a question. If Bill O'Brien leaves, what does that mean for Will Lawing, the tight ends coach? Because that's O'Brien's guy. And Vinny Sunseri is a college safety coaching the running back. So realistically, that whole group is in position to be shaken up this offseason. If Ross Douglas went to Bill and said, hey, I have this offer from the college level, did Bill or somebody else basically say to him, yeah, I mean, we don't know what your role is going to be here beyond this year. If you can get job security, take it. I wouldn't rule something like that out.
Yeah, especially because he's a younger guy. I think he's only 26, 25, 26.
Something like that, yeah.
So younger guy. He's been spoken very highly of some of the players that have been in here the last few years. He took a big role on the Shrine Bowl, that coaching staff. I believe he was the offensive coordinator. I also believe he might have been on like Tom Pelissero's, like, not next up, but like even the tier below that of guys to watch for potential head coaching candidates. So he's a young guy who, players really like and seems to have a lot of potential moving forward. So yeah, I think the question marks around not only Bill, but I mean, Troy Brown, we've talked a lot about him, and that room hasn't gone well. So could be some switch up there. And if, you don't blame him for taking job security and what sounds like a bigger role, even though it's a college program. You can't blame him for doing that, even though it's a rare, that's the word I keep coming back to, but you don't see, coaches leave like in week 14 of a season like that often.
The one it kind of reminds me of, and this was a little bit bigger, was Jed Fish left around this time. Yeah. It was like late December when he left for the Arizona job in 2020. That was obviously a different circumstance, but I think the reason this may feel unfamiliar to Patriots fans is they're not used to the team being out of it at this point.
Yeah.
When the team's out of it, things like this happen because if schools want you in terms of the NFL, you wait till the end of the season until the coaching carousel starts. But in college, if the school wants you, they're going to get you because they want you to start recruiting. They want you to start building out the offseason program, all that. Their season is over. So it's not that unusual. It doesn't happen a ton, but it's not that unusual to see a guy leave with, about a month or two left in the season to go to a college job. The difference is that only happens to teams that are out of the playoffs. If you're still in the playoff chase, generally you're going to hang around, right? Yeah. We knew Charlie Weiss was leaving for Notre Dame in 2004, but he stuck with the team. A little different situation there, but yeah, it's not that unusual, but it's a sign that, hey, guys are going to start maybe getting out of here if they can.
Yep, definitely. But few other, not as big roster moves, but we can talk about them and kind of transition them into the Steelers game too. Over the weekend after the game, Ty Montgomery was released because they claimed Corliss Ellis off waivers. They beat out 5 teams for him. The Eagles released him to make room for Shaq Leonard. So the Patriots actually claimed him before the game, but didn't have to make a move until after the game because they had that Thursday night matchup. So they released Ty Montgomery after he was probably at fault most for that block punt. They bring in Corliss Ellis, and they also released Matthew Wright, the kicker, off the practice squad, and Chad Ryland is back to being the lone kicker on the roster, even though he hasn't had any field goal attempts the last 2 games. He made 3 extra points against Pittsburgh. I asked Cam Acord about him this morning, and he said, he's been striking the ball pretty well in practice. He bounced back. So it sounds like that confidence might be kind of back up with Chad Ryland, and they can release Matthew Wright. But Ty Montgomery is an interesting one as a guy who's been here all year as a kick returner and on that pump block team. And just like, if you take it to the Steelers game, like the special teams errors just keep coming up, and that was a big one in that game. So interesting to see the move being made after that.
Yeah, it's just not good. It's not good, and we'll see if Christian Ellis helps. I think you mentioned that there, but it's mistake after mistake after mistake, and it's not like it's, Montgomery was making mistakes, but other guys were making mistakes too. I don't think just cutting one guy changes that or fixes that. I think this is a unit that's going to need a complete teardown and rebuild in the offseason outside of Bryce Baringer. That's probably it. And Matthew Slater, if he comes back, which is he going to come back after this? I can't imagine.
I would doubt it, but they have Joe Cardona under contract and Schooler.
That's true. All right. Yeah. Joe Cardona. Well, Brandon Schooler's committing a ton of penalties.
A lot of penalties. Yeah.
Yeah. No, Cardona. I should have mentioned Cardona in there. That's fair. Cardona, Baringer, and Slater, if he comes back, could they do better than Schooler? Could they get a guy that doesn't commit so many overly aggressive penalties? They might be able to. I'm not saying Schooler's bad, but I'm also not saying he's not replaceable either.
Yeah. So I was looking up his stats actually earlier because Acord was talking about, how much extra attention he's getting this year. And he's second in the league with 9 special teams tackles, but he's first in the league with 4 penalties against. He had another one Thursday night. So that's, he only had 2 all of last year. So that's been an interesting kind of development from Schooler.
And for context, Matthew Slater's never had more than 2 in a season.
Yeah. So definitely not the path you want to be on. And then, I don't know what were your thoughts on the Jelani Tavai jumps off sides in that game. They said it was because the snapper moved his hand and it moved the ball, and that caused Tavai to jump off sides. His reaction looked like he thought he got, right? He put his hands on his head and looked pretty pissed off. But that was another one that should have probably gifted Pittsburgh a first down with like 5 minutes left and maybe could have cost you the game there. So
yeah. They're one of the most penalized special teams units in the league. They didn't deserve the benefit of it out there. They obviously got it. It probably changed the game, but a special teams mistake nonetheless, whether it went in the books as one or not.
Yep. Frustrating for a team that spends so much time, resources, roster spots on all of this. They have 3 coaches. Right. It's been a frustrating year for that special teams department. But that sums it up for roster moves, I believe, right? There was nothing else. Calvin Munson is gone off the practice squad. That was the other kind of minor one there. The Dolphins signed him to the 53-man roster, their 53-man roster. But those were the kind of roster moves, coaching moves over the weekend. So we could hear from our friends over at FanDuel very quickly, and then we could get into a little bit more of that Steelers game.
Yep.
Score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action, NFL. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including you got spreads, you got your player props, you got over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/Boston and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL.
All right, so Patriots scored some points Thursday night. Yeah. Alex, 21 in fact, and 3 first half touchdowns from Bailey Zappi, first Patriots quarterback since Tom Brady in 2018 to do that. He was really good in the first half, and then things kind of fell apart in the second half. They only threw it I had it here. They only threw it 9 times in the second half. 4 of them was after an interception where he kind of made a bad decision. The ball was hit, but he had an open Hunter Henry. So tale of two halves there. It was good in the first. He was active at the line of scrimmage. He made some good throws, good in the pocket again, but they went really conservative, kind of like that Chargers game plan again in that second half, and almost let Pittsburgh back into that one.
Right. So I would say on Zappe, I guess we'll start here. The second touchdown throw to Hunter Henry, the one he throws on a rope up the sideline. Some people are comparing it to the Mac Jones interception against the Dolphins, the ones of Jalen Ramsey. That's probably the Zappe touchdown. That's probably the best single throw Patriots quarterbacks made this year. That was an excellent throw. I thought on the other touchdown, Hunter Henry did a good job of just kind of putting the ball up. That's one where you trust your playmaker, put it where only Henry could get it. Henry went up and got it. I thought Hunter Henry was outstanding in this game. And yeah, third one was just kind of a check down. Ezekiel Elliott did all the work, and we'll get to him. But I thought besides that, like the throw to Juju, that's more Juju than it was Zappe. Zappe just kind of put the ball in a spot. Juju made the catch through contact. I think you saw tremendous flashes from Bailey Zappe, but there was very little consistency. And that's ultimately what he's going to need to show over the last couple of weeks. He had a bad game against the Chargers. He was good in moments against the Steelers, then fell off. You want to see him put it together a little bit more because he did look flustered at times in the second half. He took a really weird heat check in terms of trying to fit the ball into a tight window that led to his interception there in the second half. So again, he certainly looks better than Mac Jones did. I don't think that bar is that high at this point, which is why you can't get too carried away with it and start talking about, well, just get a Marvin Harrison Jr. and here we go. We're so far from that at this point. But yeah, I thought he made some nice throws. I thought he made some nice plays, and he's got to show more. He's got to do it more consistently, but he did do that. He did put some good plays on tape.
Yeah. The one to Juju, he said it was underthrown, but he said after the game, like he alerted into that, and then he made the read, made the throw. The one in the red zone to Henry, like good throw high up, as you said, and also like really good eye manipulation to kind of hold that safety over there. I think the thing with him, he kind of like locks on to those go balls a lot, I feel, and he didn't have Devontae Parker in this game, so he was throwing them to Tyquan Thornton, which you don't love, but I thought there were a few times, especially in that second half, where like Pharaoh Brown was running open a lot in this game. There was one, he was on just kind of an over across the middle, wide open, probably would have been 20, 25, 30 yards. And Zappe just kind of locks on to Tyquan Thornton running a go route on the outside, and it falls incomplete. And he had another one to Brown later too, like up the seam. So I think there were just some bad decisions. Sometimes he locks on to those jump balls up the sidelines. But yeah, it was a good first half. Kind of fell apart in the second half. I'm not ready to announce Bailey Zappe the long-term answer here. Like we didn't say that was
right.
Malik either, but maybe he's starting to work his way into, you can keep him around next year and be a viable backup, right? And with this team, that's one less piece. It doesn't sound much, but it's one less piece you have to check off this offseason when you're kind of reloading this whole offense. So, if you have that, good, right? And that could be Bailey Zappe.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I talked to Greg Bedard about it on the Sports Hub post-game show after, and it's kind of what we were talking about is like, he's just trying to prove he belongs in the league at this point. Can he be a guy that, if you lose your starter for 3 and 4 games, he can come in and keep you afloat. And that's kind of what you saw from him on Thursday night. He's not a guy you're going to build a team around, but if you need somebody in a pinch to go win you a game, he has a chance to do that.
Yeah. I mean, he's 3-1 as a starter. So
yeah,
that's what you need as your backup. If you can
I'll say this was his most impressive win though. And I know the numbers I guess they weren't better in either of those other games. In the
Cleveland game last year was pretty impressive.
Yeah, that defense is terrible. Yeah, and that's kind of my point. I know TJ Watt was sort of in and out of the game, but you still have Minka Fitzpatrick. You still have a guy like Cameron Hayward in the middle. Like they've got players on that side of the ball there in Pittsburgh. This was his most impressive win because I think he held his own against the defense that has given quarterbacks fits, where the two last year, I'm always the first to go, yeah, remember the teams he played. Look who we played. Like you can't do that with this game. He played a good team. So he deserves credit for that one. I think he deserves as much credit for that game as he does for any of his other performances at this point.
Yeah, especially on a short week too. Add that on the road, good defense, good performance with him. But you'd imagine he's still the starter going forward, even though Bill still won't admit it. But you'd be pretty shocked if they ditch
Well, look,
Zappe.
we know it's not going to be Malik Cunningham, so that takes one option out.
One's down. We're only down to 3 options now. So, does Mac Jones have his backup job back now, or was that always Mac Jones?
We'll see if Will Grier gets elevated this week.
Yeah, so that'd be interesting to watch in that quarterback room. But you mentioned Zeke. Bill described it as a pro performance, 52 out of 57 snaps with Ramondre obviously out. The run game was iffy. He had a few nice runs at the end there to ice the game, but his work as a pass catcher was kind of where it stood out. Had that touchdown early. He's been awesome on screens this year, getting large chunks. So that was an awesome game for Zeke when they really needed him down. Ramondre, Kendrick Bourne, Demario Douglas, Kayshon Boutte, and it was good to see Zeke kind of step up like that. And he definitely still has some juice in those legs.
Yeah, I thought that was a tremendous game from him. He was the Patriots player of the game in this one. They put the whole thing on his back, and he went out and he delivered. And he's going to get paid this offseason. He's not going to get $20 million a year. But as far as running backs go, I actually think he has a chance to be towards the top of the market because he's showing he can still carry an offense. And good for him for doing that. Absolutely. But yeah, he was excellent in that game. And that was flashes of old school Zeke.
Would you say he's their best move of the offseason? Maybe not including the draft, but
yeah, no, he is. I mean, who else are we talking about here? Calvin Anderson played 2 games this year. Riley Reif played 1 game this year. Juju Smith-Schuster, maybe he comes on strong here late, but he really hasn't done much. Mike Gesicki hasn't done much. You could say like re-signing Jabril Peppers maybe would be the other one, but in terms of new players they brought in terms of veteran players they brought in, Zeke's been the best addition they made.
Yeah, it's definitely been better than Dalvin Cook down there in New York. But, you mentioned Juju. Great game, best game as a Patriot, back in Pittsburgh. It seemed like this was kind of coming almost. Like, I don't even know if I should say that because of the quarterback play, but I thought the last few weeks there have been plays for him to get the ball kind of downfield, but with everything going on with the offensive line and the quarterbacks in and out, like there's just not trust there. And like that play first drive downfield, like that's a trust play. You got to trust Juju to go up there and get that. And switching out the quarterbacks, there's just not much trust there. So maybe there's some chances down here for Juju now that Zappe's in and they're working together to get some of those more trust balls where he just has a little separation and then can kind of box out a guy in the intermediate levels of the field and kind of build off that. And even if that doesn't translate to, hey, you're locked in next year under contract, like we're not going to just cut you, but maybe it kind of garners a trade market for him and teams could see that and say, this is a guy who, we could get for a late round pick and he could still come in and be valuable. So I thought that was a good game from Juju, and maybe that's been kind of coming for the last few weeks.
Yeah, it definitely felt like it was building a little bit. I'm going to need to see more from him than just one game. His 98 receiving yards are the most for any Patriots wide receiver this season in a game. But he showed some life. I just thought in terms of his movement, we talked a lot at the beginning of the season, was his knee truly healthy? I thought he moved as well as he has all year. I thought he looked as explosive, just coming in and out of cuts, running in the open field as he has all year. So that's encouraging because it tells you, even if he maybe doesn't contribute this year, when you get to next year and he's had a full off season off, maybe he can kind of get back to being that player. That was probably the most encouraging thing for me. But like you said, I think the chemistry is a part of it too. And if you remember, he didn't participate in the spring, so he's kind of behind on working with Mac Jones, and then he wasn't super involved in camp. If anything, it gives you a little hope for maybe next season that they can salvage him. But I still think expecting anything big from Juju down the stretch here is a little much.
Yeah, but that one, like he caught and ran like 20 yards. Like that's exactly like you said, the most explosive he looked all year. And he came into the game with an ankle injury. So it was good to see, especially if he can keep building on this down the stretch. Might not completely change the perception moving on to next season, but maybe it could make you feel a little bit better about that. But while he was on the up, Tyquan was back down. I thought like another just tough game for him. Wasn't getting open. He was falling a lot, it looked like, too, on routes. So not good for him. But Hunter Henry was awesome. We talked about him a little bit. Pharaoh Brown was open a lot. So I mean, coming into the game with those pass catchers, when you saw Devontae Parker was out, like
Right.
it looked bleak, and they still put it together. Props to Zeke, Juju, and Hunter Henry for really carrying that load, but still just tough. Tyquan can't be consistent enough to even make a week in, week out impact.
I'll say this though, and I did not think Tyquan Thornton was good in this game. He wasn't. That whole take I have about how the second guess isn't Tyquan and George Pickens. It's
He did not look good either.
Christian Watson over Cole Strange, and that's who you get the receiver. The 50th and 52nd picks in that draft, 3 catches for 17 yards, 5 catches for 19 yards. Impressively low yak from both players. Obviously, Pickens has had much higher highs than Thornton has, but the point again being like neither of these guys were a sure thing. Neither of these guys could. Well, Thornton, I guess, is consistent, but no, another rough game for Tyquan Thornton. Like I said, with Juju, that kind of performance gives you some hope looking ahead to next year. With Tyquan Thornton, it's like, all right, he's got no more guaranteed money in his contract after this year. Is he even going to be a part of this thing moving forward? It's hard to say.
Yep, definitely. But last thing I had offensively, we can go to the line. I thought, we talked a lot about Mike Onwenu last week, his first really bad game against Khalil Mack. I wouldn't say it was perfect against a hobbled TJ Watt, but it was much better. He didn't allow a sack. I think it was only 3 or 4 hurries. So a really good bounce back game from Mike Onwenu, what you wanted to see against Watt there. They still rotated McDermott and Brown. The interior gave up some pressures. It looked mostly like on City So on some of those stunts and line games. Maybe you could just chop those up to some rookie mistakes. But I thought Onwenu was kind of the big one there, just to see him bounce back after his first real bad game as a tackle last week.
Yeah, that was the big takeaway from the offensive line for me. And I think we talked about this last week with Onwenu. Does that game derail the idea of bringing him back as your right tackle? And I said, well, let's see. If this becomes a habit, then yeah, you have to think twice about it. But guys have a bad game. It happens. Onwenu bounced back. So that was certainly encouraging, especially because now it really seems like Trent's gone after the way he took a shot at the team today after Malik Cunningham left. He put on Instagram and said, was it go where your talents are appreciated or something like that?
Something like that. I don't know if I could. Something along those lines. Malik Cunningham got a lot of shout outs on social media today. He was clearly a well-liked guy. Go flourish where your talent is respected. That was what Trent Brown said. So
that seems to be directed. And I'm usually the first one to say calm down on the social media stuff. Like a couple years ago when Trent Brown was liking a bunch of posts about something, it's like he likes everything.
Everything.
That's what he does. Kendrick Bourne the same way. People be like, oh, look what Kendrick Bourne like. He likes everything. This is one where I'm like, okay, there might be something behind that.
That one's a little different than just the like.
When you look at the context of what everybody else said and the way Trent has spoken about the team this year, it feels like there might have been a little more weight behind that one.
Yep, I agree. But quickly on the defense, Mitch Trubisky stinks. That was a tough watch, Mitch Trubisky. But
can I give you a hot take?
Sure.
Mason Rudolph is not better.
Oh,
I still think Mitch Trubisky was the best option for the Steelers at quarterback.
I know, weren't all the fans chanting for Mason Rudolph or something? Yeah. I'm like, that's not going to make this any better. He's not good.
Mitch Trubisky. Slower Mitch Trubisky. Yeah, that's all I heard.
At least Trubisky can run a little bit and escape. But
I don't know why they didn't run it more. Like that to me was the big question, why they didn't run more design runs for him, especially on the 3rd and 2. You want to talk about the Patriots have been on the other side of these so many times this year. You had a bad special teams mistake, the false start by the center, and that is what it ended up being in the books. And then you get to that 3rd and 2 with like 2:06 to go. The clock is going to stop. No matter what, you run the ball there. You have a quarterback you can run a read option with. You have Najee Harris. I know a lot of people are down on him, but he's a power back. He'll get you 2 yards. He might not break it, but he'll get you 2 yards. You run the freaking ball there. My God, some of the decisions the Steelers coaching staff made, especially on the offensive side of the ball, they kept trying to run that stretch run behind. I know you want to get to the defense, and we'll talk about Anthony Jennings, but like they kept going back to that. Well, it was bad. It was really bad.
And then the 4th and 2 to follow, they throw like
they threw deep on both of them. Yeah. When they only needed a field goal, you didn't need a touchdown.
I know that was, and like credit to John Jones on that. Like that was really good coverage, but like 4th and 2, and that's your look. And like no one else, it wasn't even like that was the only thing going on. Like no one else was even it was just a mess of a play on 4th and 2. So that was like a really vanilla offense for the Steelers with Mitch Trubisky, and still credit to the pass coverage and the back end there, but man, yeah, that was rough for Mitch Trubisky. It was probably one of the lone games this year the Patriots had a quarterback advantage, I would say. So not good. But the run defense, they're number one in basically every ranking you want to look at. They were awesome again. You mentioned Anthony Jennings just destroying Darnell Washington and Pat Freiermuth or any tight end they tried to put in front of him. Devon Godshaw was a beast again. DeMarcus Covington called him one of the best run defenders in the NFL. Those two guys were awesome. Christian Barmore was, again, a force, 4 or 5 quarterback pressures. So really good performance from that defensive line. Got some good contributions in the secondary after, even with, guys like Kyle Duggar blitzing the quarterback.
Yeah.
Right? Some of those creeper pressures they were running with him and Miles Bryant, the turnover and a sack. So that defensive line has been, especially against the run, has been key for them down the stretch, but they're getting some better coverage too lately in the secondary.
They kept going to this look where they would only put 2 down linemen, Barmore and Keon White, and they'd rush those 2 and blitz 2 others. And twice on 3rd down, or one of them might have been a 4th down, but they brought Kyle Duggar and Miles Bryant. And one of those ended up in a sack. Another one ended up in an interception. And yeah, it was a really good look. I think they spun the dial very well against Trubisky. The one player, though, I want to single out is Anthony Jennings, because he was going up against Darnell Washington, who, if you watch this show, a guy we talked a lot about during the draft, big physical tight end, a guy that, you get hyped up to run behind. And Anthony Jennings was just tossing him. He was not an impediment at all for Anthony Jennings as they tried to run to the outside multiple times, and just continues what's been a strong year for Jennings. And again, a guy that should be in the conversation for a new contract. He's one of the guys they need to resign. I would argue that it would make more sense, given what the payday would likely be. It makes more sense or factoring that in, not just because of that, but all things considered. Should Jennings be more of a priority than Josh Uche? I would say that there's a strong case for that.
Yeah, especially if it's the same defensive coaching staff, right? They love that guy who can set the edge against the run. So you definitely think he might be a priority this offseason. And the last guy I wanted to shout out was Mac Wilson, because he's been playing really good football the last few weeks. And this was a guy at the end of last year who was unplayable, right? He didn't play a defensive snap really down the stretch. And he's been playing really good the last few weeks. He had a sack, which, he was kind of like a quarterback spy and got Trubisky at the line of scrimmage. He had that pass breakup on, you want to talk about funky play callers from the Steelers, whatever the hell that goal line play
that was great. More fullbacks should throw passes to 3rd string tight ends in the red zone, frankly. We don't get enough of that.
Yeah, that was that. I thought they fired Matt Canada a few weeks ago. I don't know where that came from, but he made a nice play to break it up. Credit where credit's due. Dapped up Bill Belichick after. So he's been a guy, and Bill talked very highly of him after the game. So he's been a guy who's had a really nice year after kind of a rough stretch to end his first year here last year.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. He's been really good too. You saw a lot of the guys, again, that is the take I've had. You don't need to do that much with the defense. And you saw why in this game. And I know they played a good quarterback, but it's still, you go back through the film, like a solid defensive effort independent of the quarterback play on the other side. Obviously, they'll have a much tougher test this week against the Chiefs. And I'm sure they'll get torn to shreds, and you'll all tell me I'm an idiot, but I would say I don't exactly love facing a pissed off Patrick Mahomes and a pissed off Chiefs offense. But I think that they have a number of guys on this defense that you look at and you say, yeah, he can come back next year. He'll be a part of it next year.
Yep. Yeah, they'll have a good test Sunday against Kansas City, that's for sure. But any other last things you had from that Thursday night game there, offense, defense? I know we talked special teams early, but any other last notes you had?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
All right. So we could hear from SeatGeek very quickly, and then we have a few more things very quickly to conclude the show today.
I've been looking for the best deal on Celtics tickets, and with over 28 million downloads, SeatGeek is the #1 rated ticketing app. There are more than 70,000 events every single day on SeatGeek, including concerts, sports festivals, and more. With the NFL, NBA, and NHL seasons in full swing, you don't want to miss out. SeatGeek has your tickets to every game. Plus, artists like Travis Scott are on tour. They put all the tickets across the web in one place to make sure you're getting a good deal. Each ticket is rated on a scale of 1 to 10, so look for the green dots. Green means good and red means bad. Every ticket is backed by their buyer guarantee, and SeatGeek is the only site that lets you return your tickets ahead of the event with swaps. So as you know, I always come through for you guys. You can use my code DREAMERSPRO for $20 off tickets at SeatGeek. That's $20 off your first purchase with promo code DREAMERSPRO. Make sure you check the link in the description to download the app.
All right, so we'll get into Boston Sports Minute in a second, but before we do that, Alex, I wanted to hear how Army-Navy was, because it looked like an awesome atmosphere and an awesome game. And did you take anything away from Robert Kraft or Bill Belichick on College game day before the game?
So Army-Navy was unbelievable, and I think every single person who was there, even some people I know had doubt about what the game would be like, came away saying this was, I'm so glad I went. Unbelievable bucket list event for fans. From some people I've talked to, I think Gillette Stadium passed the test, right? So hopefully the next open game is in 2028. I think they're going to schedule them in blocks of 4. So at some point in that next block, hopefully it comes back. Certainly, yeah, it's an environment. You don't get environments like that in the NFL, even when the Patriots are good. And Gillette Stadium's a good environment when the Patriots are good, but it's on another level, man. And the pomp and circumstance of all of it. And then to get a great game, second year in a row, by the way, the game came down to 1 or 2 plays on the goal line with me standing next to the end zone that they're in. I was right there. It was me, Mike Cadlick, Sophie Weller, George Belichick from Nesson. We were all kind of checking that out. Just an unbelievable game, unbelievable night. Tremendous job by the Crafts and all of them. Tremendous job by the schools. Shout out to the players for playing a great game. Again, if you haven't been to it, it's going to be in DC next year, and then Baltimore, and then back in Philly. You don't know. I don't know if it's going to be back here. It should be. I hope it is, but I don't know. Go. If you can go. Find a way to go. Go over the whole thing. Go for March on. It was funny the come down after that game for me. It being something I've been looking forward to so much, and then, that's it. It's done, and it's not one of those things where it comes back next year. Like the draft for me. It's all right. Well, that was fun. I'll get to do it again next year. I don't know what the deal is with Army Navy, but yeah, tremendous experience, and I can't, as you can tell, I can't say enough about it. As for Kraft and Belichick putting on the helmet was awesome.
Yeah,
him awesome. And Corso was great. I love College game day. It's a big part of my, how I watch college football, how I learn about college football. I got to meet Stanford Steve, which was pretty cool. And he couldn't have been nicer. He was awesome. Same Dave Portnoy. Me and Mike met Dave Portnoy, which was cool. He was super nice as well. But yeah, to see Bill up there on the set with those guys, with Kirk and all them, was fun. As for Kraft, and everybody will make a lot of the comment that not that he made, but that Pat McAfee made to him about hey, we all know what comes next. I don't envy you. This is kind of a disconnect to me. And I know people don't want to hear this, and this sounds like me dismissing it, but as somebody who watches College game day every week and watches a lot of Pat McAfee, to people who probably aren't familiar with Pat McAfee, the media personality, which if you're not a big college football person, you're probably not. He just kind of says things. And he said this yesterday, and everybody, he's backtracking. No, he's a weird guy. He's kind of an instigator, and I love him for it. I don't mean a nut for it. It's great. But this is what he does. They had Lane Kiffin on the show a couple of weeks ago, and he's trying to get Kiffin to admit he's rooting for Alabama, which is kind of a scandalous thing in Kiffin's position. So this is sort of just what he does. I don't think Pat McAfee knows anything. If you go back a couple of weeks, you remember Dan Orlovsky said on their show that he heard the deal was already set for Bill Belichick to get traded. I'm sure McAfee's thinking about that. I don't think Pat McAfee knows anything. He's just kind of weirdo, in a great way, but he's just kind of goofy. This is what he does. And this is just a bunch of people who aren't exposed to College game day is not NFL Countdown. NFL Countdown is especially now. I used to love NFL Countdown when I was a kid. It's a news show. It's all right. Here are the matchups. Here's what you need for fantasy. Here's the betting. Like it's very all. There's not a ton of goofing around. I'm not saying they don't have fun. College Game Day is just like a free for all.
Yeah.
I mean, they do a little bit of everything. And if you don't watch College Game Day regularly, I understand why you'd see that segment and think that there's something going on behind closed doors. This is just what they do. I go back to McAfee. Like if you watch every week, McAfee has a student. He picks a student. This week it was 2. He had one from each academy. Picks a student, has him try to kick like I think it's like a 30-yard field goal, and McAfee offers like it's anywhere from like $100,000, $300,000, depending on the week, whatever mood he's in, and he like legitimately shit talks the kids, and like talks crap about the universities and all of that. If you were watching that with no understanding of what's going on, you would think, "Oh my God, this is horrible. McAfee's going to lose his job." Oh my God, no, this is just what he does. It's just who he is. So, yeah, and there's mixed opinions of him on game day. I like him. But yeah, again, if you don't really watch him regularly, I understand why that looks weird out of context.
Yeah, he likes to just ruffle feathers and say whatever just comes to his mind. So I didn't put too much into that, but I do like him on game day. His call, you had to see the call conference championship weekend where he did the whole Georgia song and then he picked Alabama. Yeah. That was all time. That was so great. Funny. That was so funny. But yeah, the one thing Kraft said, I don't know how you took it, but he was talking a lot about, loyalty and, friendship. Yeah. And that's how he's built this thing up. Did you take that because I kind of took that being like, hey, we're not just going to maybe hire a new guy and fire a new guy like a David Tepper or, we're like relationships around here. I didn't necessarily take that as, oh, we're just going to keep Bill around. I kind of took that the other way, I think. I don't know. Did you read into that anyway?
Those are pretty core Kraft tenets.
Yeah.
That's kind of just him saying that's just him playing the hits. Again, I know so many people want to take so much out of that. And I hate to be the bummer, and this isn't even necessarily to defend Bill Belichick. I don't think it means anything one way or the other. I think that's just Kraft saying things he generally says when he's in public. Oh yeah, we're the Krafts. This is what we do. We hire smart people and we keep them around and we promote them and we believe in our own, and like that's just core Kraft beliefs. I don't know that says much about now. If you want to extrapolate that, that's why I think so many people see either somebody like Gerard Mayo assuming that role if Bill leaves, or them going back to a familiar name like a guy like Josh McDaniels. If you want to connect those dots, fine. What I would say is we've known that. We've known this is how Kraft operates for years. I didn't need him saying it on game day to tell me. So I don't think it's any new information, but yes, it does maybe hammer home the idea that, hey, they're not going to go totally off the map and hire some guy that has never been connected to the organization. There's going to be somebody there. Now, maybe it's not an immediate connection. Maybe it's somebody who was here briefly, somebody who was here a long time ago, something like that. But I don't think it's any new information there. That's how Kraft just always talks.
Yep. He's always been big on loyalty. We've seen that certainly throughout his time here. But we can end with a Boston Sports Minute because we haven't hit one of those in a while. MLB free agency is in full force, and the Red Sox said a few months ago maybe that they were going to go full throttle, and this is certainly not full throttle, if is one way to say it. They traded for Tyler O'Neill. Did they have one other minor move that I'm forgetting?
They traded Verdugo away.
Verdugo, obviously.
It's a wash.
Yeah, that was another one to the Yankees as... Ohtani signed with the Dodgers. There was a report that they're meeting. The Red Sox are meeting with Yamamoto this morning, but it's been kind of a disappointing start, I would say, even though they got marginally better, I think, with these two moves. But now we need the big stuff. You can't just keep making these little moves year after year and expecting things to change. You need to go out and spend. You have the money. There's no reason not to at this point.
Yeah, it needs to be more than marginal. And I'll say this, and people know I'm not usually one to defend the Red Sox. I don't necessarily care that they didn't get Ohtani.
Yeah.
I don't think he was ever going to sign here, money or not. Said he wanted to be on the West Coast, said he wanted to be somewhere where he can be a lower profile in LA. There's so many celebrities around, it'll be easier for him. But, like today, and I don't think Seth Lugo is such a great pitcher, but this was supposedly one of their guys. This was one of the guys that they felt could really help them, and they got outbid. And look, sometimes you get outbid when you're bidding against big market teams like the Kansas City Royals. They got outbid by the Kansas City Royals. And this is why it was so hard for me to throw too much crap at Chaim Bloom. And that's not to say he didn't deserve to be fired. He did. He was bad at his job, independent of the spending. Like his deadlines were all bad. But remember what I said? If they fire him, great. You can't replace him with another nerd because ownership's going to do the same penny pinching bullcrap. And here we are. You're getting outbid by the Kansas City Royals for the 5th best starter on the market. And there was the report today, in that report, that the Red Sox are talking to Yamamoto. It said the Red Sox are not expected to get into a bargaining war if the Mets and Yankees start one. You're a big market team like the Mets and the Yankees. You should be bargaining for that guy. You should be going to the table for that guy. You desperately need pitching. This is the best pitcher available.
Who's 25 years old.
25 years old.
It's not like I get maybe not putting it all in Blake Snell's basket, who's, 30, 31 years old, but this is a 25-year-old guy who's about to hit the prime of his career.
And you know what? Their Japanese scouts doing a decent job.
Yeah.
Right? Last year they hit. Why can't I think of his name right now?
Yoshida
was a hit, I would say. It fell off a little bit at the end of the year. He was banged up. He's a good player. Why are you not going to the bargaining table for the player you need? When you say you're going full throttle, when you say this year is going to be different, this has not been different. You are adding players on the margins. They traded Alex Verdugo for 3 mid-level and look, they need to get rid of Verdugo. They traded him for 3 mid-level prospects. They traded him for 3 guys who are lottery tickets, who are not guaranteed to be contributing major league players. They then traded for Tyler O'Neill, a guy who has played over 100 games just once in 6 major league seasons and is coming off a back injury. They are now nickel and diming pitchers, and you know where this ends, Brian. 1 year, $10 million with a club option for 2025 for some guy with a broken-ass elbow. For Corey Kluber again. He might be back because it's the same freaking thing they've been doing. And ticket prices are going to go up. And the beers are going to get more expensive because ownership thinks you, the fans, are idiots. And credit to Red Sox fans. They're not falling for it anymore. They understand this team is a dumpster fire, and they're calling ownership out for it. I just think ownership doesn't care. But yes, it is very frustrating. I had some hope with Craig Breslow. I probably shouldn't have, but I did. I thought, hey, you know what? He's been here. He understands. He's a former player. He kind of gets what the game means to this city, the importance of this franchise in the sport. Maybe he can sway ownership a little bit and get those purse strings open a little bit more and do a little less nibbling around the edges and actually try to go for something. No, because it's not a great offseason. There aren't that many players available. Soto's gone to the Yankees, by the way. You helped them get him. Ohtani's gone. Like I said, I never thought they were going to be in on Ohtani. I'll be consistent. I won't hold that one against him. They're not going to get Yamamoto because they're not going to bid for him. And now they're not even getting like their second, third, fourth option. Seth Lugo, they're getting outbid again. There's only so much you could do when you're negotiating against a team with as deep pockets as the Kansas City Royals. When the Kansas City Royals are in a spending class that the Boston Red Sox are not, it is such a major problem. All right, if you can't tell, I haven't talked Red Sox in a while, so I need to get that chat.
Chris Cotillo, who does awesome job for the Red Sox, says Red Sox are one of top 4 bidders for Seth Lugo. Not sure if they were willing to go 3 full years as Casey was, plus a valuable opt-out after 2. So, yeah, getting outbid there by the Royals is never a good look. So, yeah, it's like you spent the last 2 years, multiple years, even more than that, like restocking the farm. You have a good young core now. It's kind of exciting, and you paid Devers, but like you have the money now. Like go go all in, go get a Yamamoto and a Jordan Montgomery, right? Like you shouldn't have to just split hairs here over one. Like you can go get both of these guys, and then your rotation, like Yamamoto, Montgomery, Bayo, Sale can be your fourth guy, right? And that's better
Nope,
spot.
Sale's the opening day starter. Cora said it, and we probably all should have taken that as the warning sign it was back then. But
so yeah, it's frustrating, but I want to hold out hope here because all these guys are still available. But I'm losing hope as days go by with them here. Maybe they'll get into the trade market, but
they won't.
Yeah, they probably won't because you're gonna have to pay those guys eventually too. So some frustrating stuff from the Red Sox. I don't know. Do you have any Celtics Bruins stuff? My only Bruins take is
I was going to say, give me a take on your Boston Bruins.
Jim Montgomery needs to stop benching Matt Patra in the third period. I don't like that. Rather, you just kind of like what we talked about with the Patriots, right? Like let these guys out there and fight through some rookie mistakes. And Pacha's one of their better defensive forwards this year, and he's saying like he can't be out there. I know he has a rookie mistake here or there, and Montgomery's saying he's putting the guys out there we pay to win games, but Pacha's been one of their better forwards this year, so I just don't get that whole move to keep benching him in the third period every game when you have a lead. It's kind of frustrating.
On the Celtics, I think you saw what a different team they are when they have Kristaps Porzingis versus when they don't. He's got to stay healthy for the playoffs. That's monumental. That's my big takeaway is that guy. It's him and Tatum. I honestly like Jalen's been, I know he's had some moments, but I don't think he's necessarily elevated his game from last year. Still a good player. He's still a piece, but it's Tatum and Porzingis. That's going to be the duo. If they win a title, that's the 1-2 punch to me.
Yep. Were you crushed not winning the in-season tournament?
No.
We couldn't hang a banner like the Lakers are.
Couldn't care less. And look, elimination game, the Celtics don't show up. Looks familiar, but I'm not going to get all hot and bothered about the fake tournament.
Yeah, you saw the Lakers are actually hanging the banner, right?
I think the league's making them because they said they weren't going to, and then it was like they're going to hang a different color, different shaped banner, and it's going to be one banner, and they'll add years to it in the future. And the league's making them do it because the league wants people to think that this thing actually matters. Yeah, and look, it was cool. It was fun. I didn't need the courts and all that.
Like it was way too much. I just couldn't do the courts.
Right. That one night where we were like all looking to see who was going to get in and the tiebreakers and the point differential, like that was fun. It was better than I thought it would be, but stop. It's a fun little thing. And I'll give them credit for that. I thought it was going to be obnoxious. It's a fun little thing. Stop trying to make it more than a fun little thing. Because I promise you that's all it needs to be. You're just in it for the ratings bump. You're just in it to get a few more games during the regular season that matter. That's what you got. You don't need to go above and beyond with it, NBA. That's for all I'll say.
Yeah. It seemed like it worked with the ratings and the crowd reaction and that like Indiana Celtics game, but you don't need to get kind of carried away with it here. But that was our Boston Sports Minute, and that was our Patriots talk today, coming off that 21-18 win on Thursday over the Pittsburgh Steelers to improve to 3-10, and they got some help around the league. They still hold that number 2 overall pick, got some cushion with some of those teams below them.
Oh, that's right. I have one more take I want to say, and I wrote about this on 985thesportshub.com, but I want to say it now because when I say it again in April or in May, and I really hope I don't have to say it in May, but when I do, I want people to know I was saying it now, and I'm not.
You're going to have to say it in May.
To the people upset about the loss or the win, I get it. You want the team to lose. You want the better pick. Like you're totally justified in wanting that. I have no problem with that. But to say that it is like the worst thing or the most consequential thing that could happen, you never want losing to become habitual. And there is value in some of these younger guys winning a primetime game on the road and just seeing what it takes to win a close game like that. There is value in that. The team should not actively be trying to lose games on a player level. So people say, oh, well, now they're going to fall from like the second pick to like the fourth pick. Whoever they identify as their guy, if there is a player that they believe, can be the next 15 years of the organization, whether that be a quarterback, whether that be Marvin Harrison Jr., whether it be somebody else, if there's a guy they believe is that guy, and you may say, okay, well, their evaluation sucks and he won't be that guy. Let's just from their point of view, they believe they have the future of the organization. Let's say they end up picking 4th, and that guy goes 3rd. They need the 3rd pick to get that guy. They can't just say, "Oh, shucks, we're not picking high enough. We can't get him." You got to move up and get him. That is the price of doing business in the NFL. In the last 10 years, non-first overall, but top 10 picks. So from 2nd to 10, because the first overall pick is different. It's its own thing. Quarterbacks drafted 2nd to 10th. 7 of 16, almost half, were acquired via a trade-up. That's the price of doing business in the NFL. So if we get to May, and let's say, just because I just said May, it is Drake May. And I know a lot of you don't like Drake May, but or Jane Daniels, whoever you want. Let's say that's the guy the Patriots believe in. Let's say they believe Drake May, he's going to come in and he's going to be the future of our organization for the next 15 years. He's going to keep us competitive every year. We're going to win we're going to win a couple Super Bowls. We're going to win a bunch of playoff games. But, oh no, he's going to go 3rd and we're picking 4th and we don't want to give up, a 2nd round pick to move up. Oh, well, no. The criticism is not that they won a game against the Steelers in early December. The criticism is the inability or the lack of desire to move up the draft board. I'm saying that right now. I want you to remember that. That is where the criticism lies if they don't get their guy. And one other thing, because when I was looking up that number about quarterbacks being traded up for, and this is something I want to take back, one of my takes, because I've said I like the idea of you move back a couple spots, you draft Jane Daniels, you use that ammo to move back up. Do you know the last time, Brian, a team moved down in the top 10, stayed in the top 10, and took a quarterback? And it's not Eli Manning, Phillip Rivers, because technically Eli Manning was drafted by the Chargers, and that also just has its own situation. That was a very unique situation.
No, I don't think I could tell you.
So it's 1995. The Carolina Panthers traded down from 1 to 5. They let the Bengals move up and take Keyjana Carter. They moved down to 5, and they took Kerry Collins. Steve McNair went 3rd. The point being, it's been 20 years. This doesn't happen. Yeah. And also on C.J. Daniels, do you know who the last Heisman to not go 1-1 his draft year was? And I'm not saying Daniels is going to go 1-1, but just to make the point. The last Heisman to not go 1-1 his draft year?
Lamar?
Marcus Mariota. So Lamar won the Heisman, wasn't drafted for two more years.
That was it.
The last one to not go top 2 was Troy Smith.
So
what is that, like 2004?
Yeah.
I have it in here. I wrote it. I don't know why I can't find him in here. Yeah, 2007. So you're not trading back for Jane Daniels. It's not happening. If the guy is on the board and you believe he's the guy, you take him because you don't risk losing him. And if that means you need to move up to get him, you do it. Period. End of story. Oh, but they're going to have to give up 2nd and 3rd round picks. How are those picks going for them right now? What is the need for them to hold on to those picks? So I just want to get that take out because I'm probably going to end up saying again in May, and I don't want people to say I'm making excuses. I'm saying that right now before it happens. Hopefully it doesn't happen. And maybe they lose out and it doesn't matter. But you move up to get the guy. That's just the price of doing business in the NFL.
Yep. I mean, I get big picture, like the draft is what matters for this organization and getting your guy. And you can trade up to get your guy, but it's good for these players, especially the young guys and the coaches too, to win a game because they've been still working their butts off, right? Even at 2-10, they're working really hard. So it's nice to kind of like a basketball player. It's nice to see one go in every now and then. And it looked like it meant a lot. Like, when's the last time you've seen a guy like Jonathan Jones celebrate like that after that last incompletion that he forced? Like, you could tell that game was big for them and it meant a lot. And then they stayed at the 2nd pick and all these other teams with 4 wins won. So it's like nothing really happened to hurt your draft stock this week. So it was good to get a win. But yeah, if they get another win or two down the stretch here and they still love Drake May or love Jaden Daniels, just give up an extra draft pick and go get them. And then we don't have to sit here and talk about, oh, they could have had DeJuan Jones in the 4th round instead of Jake Andrews anyway, because they just traded that pick to move up. So I agree with your point there, but it is good for the players to get a win because, again, they are not tanking. The coaches are not tanking. They do not care about any of that. Christian Barmore said it yesterday. We're here to win football games. Like, that's what they're trying to do. So they got a win. Didn't hurt their draft stock that much. So kind of a win-win for them this week. And their next game will be back at home against the Kansas City Chiefs. It is on Sunday now after getting flexed from Monday night. Alex and I will be back to preview that one on Thursday, so make sure you subscribe to the channel so you know when we go live. And you can also follow Alex on Twitter at @RealAlexBarth. Go read all his work over at 985thesportshub.com. You can follow me on Twitter at @IamBrianHines, and go read all my coverage over at patspulpit.com. Thank you all as always for tuning in today, and we will see you guys later.